Seeing that you can produce the same amount of oxygen as 20 trees from this kit, you can imagine how algae produces a lot of oxygen. In fact, every second breath that you take, you owe to algae. There's over 72,000 species of algae producing at least half the world's oxygen. But how do we make algae grow well? Well, we can take a look at algal blooms for that. Algae blooms is when algae literally blooms, when there's a rapid increase in the population of algae in a water system to the point where it's very visible. Algae blooms can occur naturally, but they can also happen as a result of human activity. Intensive use of fertilizers as well as heavy irrigation can lead to a process called eutrophication, where a water system becomes heavily concentrated with nutrients. These conditions lead to a situation where algae can bloom, and it can sometimes be pretty damaging for the natural ecosystem. Algae blooms occur when conditions are just right for a lot of algae to grow. This includes warm temperatures, an abundance of sunlight, as well as plenty of nutrients in the water and slow flowing or stagnant water systems. Now, when the algae dies after an algal bloom, the bacteria that feeds on it can actually deplete the amount of oxygen in a water system to such an extent where fish and other creatures living in that system can die. You might have guessed it, but the conditions that lead to an algae bloom are actually what we're trying to simulate in our algae bioreactor. To make our mini bioreactor, the first thing that we're going to need to make is our algae media. Now, algae media is kind of like algae food. It's just water that algae can grow really well in. Our kits contain plenty of algae fertilizer. In fact, there's enough in the kit to make 10 liters of algae media. To start, the first thing that we'll need is a container. Find something that you can upcycle so that you can use it to hold your algae media. It's really important that you clean it really well with detergent so that there's no contaminants or anything inside it that will affect algae growth. It's important to rinse your container really well after cleaning it with detergent, and this is because a lot of detergents contain a chemical called sodium hydroxide, which can cause the cell membrane of algae to split. With this container, you can now make your algae media. Algae media is made up of just two components, algae fertilizer and clean water. Now, the algae in the kit is pretty tough, but for best results, you can boil your water to remove any contaminants or anything that will negatively affect algae growth. When making algae media, we recommend adding 1 milliliter of algae fertilizer for each liter of clean water. So here we have 2 liters of clean water. And what we're going to add to it is 2 milliliters of algae fertilizer to make a total of 2 liters of algae media. I'm just going to open the algae fertilizer here. I'm wearing gloves and all my safety equipment. And then I've got my pipette. And there's little markers just here that have how many mils. So you can see the bottom one is half a milliliter, and then it goes up to 1 milliliter, and then we want 2 milliliters. So I'm going to squish the top, push it down, and then fill it up to 2 milliliters. And now we're going to give this bottle a good shake. And that's pretty much it. That's how you make algae media. So all you need to do now is make sure you label your container really clearly so that you know that no one is going to mistake it for anything and drink it. Now we're going to make our mini algae bioreactor. This is actually called inoculating your algae. From here, it can take about 2 weeks for your algae to bloom. Now, what we need to do is measure out 200 milliliters in this container and then add in that amount of water. So here we have our algae. Give it a swirl. If you just give this a twist, the wax seal will come off pretty easily. And then we add this one in there. Like that. Once you have poured in your algae, this is when you can tighten the lid up. So tighten the lid, and then because we want there to be gas exchange, you want to tighten it to the point where it's not going to spill, but then just do a little half turn back so that gas can still get into the container. There's our algae. Woo! We recommend storing your algae bioreactor inside, but not in a place where it can become a spilling hazard or a tripping hazard. This reduces the risk of contaminants like aerosols, dust, or liquids getting into the bioreactor because these could contain bacteria. Algae needs plenty of sunlight to grow, but not so much where the temperature inside the container gets above 40 degrees, otherwise the algae can die. A sunny windowsill is perfect, but feel free to experiment with locations so that you can see what can optimize algae growth. If you're experimenting with multiple bioreactors, then this video will show you how you can set up your control. In the next video, we'll show you how you can change up some of the variables, but also we'll show you how once this algae blooms within about 2 weeks, how you can scale up your bioreactor to grow more and more algae with more and more algae media.